Dealing with difficult questions can be really daunting. If you've been invited to be on a panel discussion or you're doing a live Q&A and you think you're going to be asked difficult questions, that can make you pretty nervous. It's one of the top things that people worry about when I'm working with them. How do I deal with difficult questions, or how do I deal with a question that I don't know the answer to? Here are my 5 top tips on how to deal with difficult questions. Now, at the moment, political leaders are quite rightly being faced with some pretty difficult questions on a daily basis. Actually, not pretty difficult, incredibly difficult questions. So I wanted to show some examples in today's video, and I'm going to use Donald Trump and Boris Johnson as those examples of what to do and what not to do. Now, it's worth saying this is not a political post. I'm not interested in their politics at all in this video. I'm merely using them as examples. So let's get stuck in. Tip number 1. Always let the person asking the question finish their question.
Is it possible that your impulse to put a positive spin on things may be giving Americans a false sense of hope?
No, I don't think so.
Misrepresenting the preparedness right now?
No, I don't think so. I think that, I think it's got,
the not yet approved drug.
Such a lovely question. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. I feel good about it. And we're going to see. You're going to see soon enough.
What do you say to the Americans who are scared, though? I guess nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
No matter how difficult that question is, how hostile it appears to be, make sure as a presenter you listen to the full question. If you interrupt that person, you're going to get involved in a two-way discussion that you have no control over. If you listen to the question in full, you know what that question is no matter how difficult it is to answer. But if you start talking back and forth, that could go into an area that you have no control over at all. So no matter how difficult the question is to hear, make sure you listen to the question in full. Tip number 2. Think about your body language if you're being asked difficult questions. Make sure you appear open to the audience. If you appear hostile, I promise you the questions will be even more difficult. The audience will be even more hostile towards you.
I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism. And the same with NBC and Comcast. I don't call it Comcast. I call it Concast. Let me just for whom you work. Let me just tell you something. That's really bad reporting.
What you need to do is have open palms. So you see President Trump doing that a little bit with the open palms, but he's reverting to pointy finger as well. So his body language is sending some really mixed messages. Pointy finger never works. Never ever point at the audience. If you point at the audience, I promise you, when you ask if there are any more questions, you will be met with a dead silence. And doing this to the audience is a bit like hitting them with a stick. Never point at the audience. It looks like you've lost complete control. Tip number 3. If you think you're going to be asked difficult questions, do what Boris Johnson does and take a pen and paper with you.
We are going to hear, first of all, I think, from Laura Kuenssberg of the BBC. Laura, are you there?
Thank you, Prime Minister. Yes. Prime Minister, can you honestly say that the government is coping? There aren't enough tests. People are struggling to make ends meet. And some people are being forced to go to work when they don't feel that they're safe. Is that coping? And can I ask the medics as well, if we already had the kinds of numbers of tests that you would like to see, how much of a difference would it have made to your ability to fight the disease?
When somebody's asking you the question, you can be writing bullet points down for how you are going to answer it. It's also a great device if you don't know the answer to the question. You can say, "Thank you so much for that question. I don't know the answer at this moment in time, but I have written that question down. It's a really important one. I'm going to find out the answers and I'm going to get back to you." I've seen people do this. Steve Ballmer used to do this for Microsoft, and it is really, really effective. A pen and paper can work really well for you. It's also a great tactic if it's a very long question, because then you can write down parts of the question that you definitely want to answer. Tip number 4, be gracious. If you appear hostile, as I said, the audience will be hostile back to you. But if you're gracious, you will find that the questions will be less aggressive. Do what Boris Johnson does and thank people for their questions, no matter how difficult they are.
Well, thanks very much, Beth. Well, thanks, Gary. And thanks very much, Samuel.
Tip number 5, practice. You can actually practice dealing with difficult questions before you get on stage. The way to do this is to ask a trusted friend or a colleague to spend some time with you firing really difficult questions at you, and you can practice how you will respond. What you'll find is that person will probably ask you questions that are way more difficult than you're ever going to receive in a Q&A or a panel discussion, but it can be a really good way of practicing your responses. So those are my top tips on dealing with difficult questions. Really, it's all about planning and preparation. You don't know what they're going to ask, but you can plan on how you will deal with them in advance. Good luck, and if you have any questions at all or would like me to make any videos on any other subjects, then please do comment below. It would be fantastic to hear from you. Thanks for watching that video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, here's a link to some more. Please do subscribe because I'll be uploading videos weekly.